But first, a moment again for those crispy edges. Oh, so good. Hi, I'm Dane from Dane's Kitchen, and today is a very special day because we are making lasagna. Now, lasagna is a labor of pure love because I'm not gonna lie, it is quite a time-consuming dish to make. And for that reason, I don't make this for a lot of people. It's usually my way of showing someone that I love them because I have spent all day in the kitchen babysitting a slow-cooked ragu. I've made a bechamel, and I'm also gonna make those lasagna sheets from scratch, which is totally optional. You don't have to do it from scratch. You can use pre-bought pasta, but I don't know, I just love something about homemade pasta, and if I'm spending so much time on the sauce and all those extra elements, I'm gonna go hard and do everything the real old-fashioned way. We love lasagna so much in my house that I even have a whole book on lasagna. Now let's get started on the ragu. This one does take the most amount of time because ragu is a meaty Italian sauce that's been slow cooked, and the base to a good ragu is a sofrito. So a sofrito is usually a mixture of celery, carrots, and onion. And you can really finely chop it, but I'm a little bit lazier and I'm gonna put it all in a food processor because I think that's way easier than sitting here and chopping up vegetables for, I don't know, a good 20 minutes. Plus, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and this is a great way to sneak extra veggies into her diet. I also really like using the celery leaves. I see a lot of people discard these, but I think they have so much flavor. Plus, it's better not to waste. I'm just roughly chopping up the carrots. I'm just gonna blend that one on high. All right, so that is very fine. Some people might say, oh, Dane, you have chopped it up way too fine, but this is how I like it. I've done 2 celery stalks and 2 carrots in there, and then I'm gonna do 2 onions and a lot of garlic because it wouldn't be a recipe of mine without lots of garlic. We're just gonna roughly chop these onions up. Now we need lots of onion for our sofrito because my mum has always said that the onion is where most of the flavor lives. And I actually recently heard that a good sofrito is 2 parts to 1. So 2 parts onion to 1 part celery and 1 part carrot. So I guess she actually had a good point there. All right, so I've got this bulb of garlic and I'm gonna use probably just over half of it because I love garlic. You can see from my cookbook, garlic, olive oil, and everything else. Bit of a product placement shot there, but I am very excited about the book. So then just to get the skin off the garlic, just smash it really hard with the back of your knife. All right, so I think that's about 4 cloves I've put in there. I really don't think it makes much of a difference frying your garlic separately to your vegetables, especially when you're doing a slow cooked ragu. And that is all the prep done for our sofrito. I'm gonna grab some fresh tomatoes because, as I said, fresh tomatoes are really delicious in this ragu sauce. And we like to peel our tomatoes. So the best way to do that is to score the bottom of them and make an X-like shape. And then I'm just gonna pop them into the bowl here, heat-proof bowl. And I'm gonna pour boiling hot water onto them. And I'm gonna let them sit for about 10-15 minutes, but I'm just gonna let them sit while I'm preparing everything else for the ragu. So that will give me about 15 minutes of them in there. And then what's gonna happen is that skin is going to really easily peel off. Now, the next thing we need is the meat. All right, so I have these beautiful organic meats and I have a mixture of beef and pork because, as Vinny says in Goodfellas when he's making those meatballs, pork is where the flavor's at and you need to have that. 500 grams of each. So you want to season it really generously. That's going to flavor the meat. You will notice a huge difference if you forget this step. So it is really important. A lot of the time I'll say, oh, don't worry if you mess that up, it'll work out. But this is a really, really important step. It's just gonna give that extra depth of flavor. And then I'm gonna season it with a lot of salt. I know I'm using beautiful flaky sea salt here, which a lot of chefs would be rolling their eyes at right now, but I don't know, I just really like cooking with flaky sea salt, even though it should be left more for a presentational finishing touch. I like cooking with it too, but don't tell anyone. So we're going to do both sides. So just kind of massage that into the meat. And there we have it. That's all our prep done for the ragu, and now we're going to cook it up. Those tomatoes have been sitting in that hot water. Ooh, bit hot. And now look at how easy it is to peel that skin off. And then we just want to really roughly chop these up. Now that we've prepped everything for the ragu, I'm going to cook it in a big Dutch oven. That's how I like to make my ragu, but you can use any big pot you like. Just make sure you're using a big pot because we're making a really large amount of sauce, which will actually probably be a little bit more than is needed for the lasagna, but leftover ragu always goes a long way. Just toss some pasta through it, dip some bread, makes for great leftovers. We're gonna put the heat onto high. Just gonna drizzle some in there. I'd love to make the joke that we're drizzling just a little amount, but go hard on the olive oil again. I can only imagine what people are going to say, but you do want a generous amount of olive oil in there because that's going to flavor the meat when we put it in there. And it's also going to help caramelize the meat. And you'll see there's a fair bit of olive oil in there. It's kind of doing a bit of a shallow fry, and I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let that sit there and fry in that olive oil because, again, and I know I keep harping on about it, but that is going to give you that caramelized crust, which is so, so good. Let's flip this over. That's a bit more crust. Another trick to breaking up mince is to use a whisk. I should actually try that. This is my mum's trick when she goes like this. And you'll see that it's still got a bit of pinkness in the middle, and that's totally fine because, again, this step isn't to cook the meat, it's to create that depth of flavor. And now I'm just going to get a slotted spoon, which is one of these spoons with the holes in it, because that's going to let that oil stay in the pan while we scoop out the meat. You see that it drips through. And I'm going to place it into a bowl. All right. So now we're going to get more olive oil. I know, more olive oil, but olive oil, I could make a whole episode about the beauty of olive oil, but this just adds such a lovely flavor. And this is really high quality extra virgin olive oil. We've got that sofrito mix of onion, garlic, carrot, and celery. I'm going to throw that in. Cooking it in the same pan that we cooked the meat in is totally fine as well. And once it's sizzling, turn the heat down to a medium. So mix it all through, and then we're going to actually leave that to sit and cook for about 10 minutes. This sofrito's been cooking for about 10 minutes, and you can see that it's really softened up and all of that moisture and olive oil has been absorbed into it, giving it all that beautiful flavor. Now what I'm doing is I'm creating a hole in the center because I am going to turn my heat all the way up to really, really high, and I'm going to get some tomato paste and we're going to fry it off. Now there is a little trick to working with tomato paste, and something that really frustrates me when I see people cook with it is just plop it straight into the sauce, because that is not how you cook with it. You actually need to fry it off, and fry it off really well for about 2 to 3 minutes until it's sticking to the bottom of the pan and it's turned a deep red, almost brown brick-like color. And I use about almost this full can. I don't want to use too much because it does add a real richness. And you'll see like it's starting to really stick to the bottom of the pan. It's really starting to turn that deep red color, which is what we're looking for. Now I'm going to add in some wine to deglaze it. And deglazing basically just means getting every last drop of flavor off the bottom of the pan that's sticking there. So that tomato paste, a little bit of that meat flavor from when we fried the meat, and all of that sofrito flavor as well. So I'm just going to use white wine. You can use red wine as well. That's about probably a cup of white wine. I like to use a fair bit of wine. I really like the flavor that it gives a ragu. And look at how you'll see the bottom of the pan. See how there's nothing sticking to it now? We've gotten all of that flavor off it. that is how you deglaze a pan. So whenever you read deglaze the pan with wine, this is what they mean. Now we're going to get the passata, throw that in. And this is a little trick from my nana, which I think most Italian families would know to do, is to put the water into the passata and get every last drop out of it. Plus we also need about 1/2 to 1 cup of water in the sauce. In go the tomatoes that we peeled. I'm gonna put in that mince. And this is why I said that you need a big pot, because this is full to the brim right now. So yeah, a fair whack of salt, because this is gonna cook for a long period of time, and that seasoning is really gonna mellow out. So don't freak out when you see all that salt going in there. Okay, so I'm actually going to take this off my big burner and put it on my little one. So you just want to see that slight bubble. Just give it another stir. And then I'm going to pop the lid on. We're going to walk away and we're going to leave that cook for 2.5 hours. I like to take the lid off in the last 20 minutes just to thicken it up a little. Really just depends on how thick or runny you like your sauce. But that's it. That ragu's been going for 2 hours. I'm going to check on it. Oh, this is smelling so good. All right, so we're just going to leave that now and get ready with everything else. Now we are finally on to the final component of our lasagna. Don't say I didn't warn you that this is a time-consuming, labor-intensive dish, because it is. We have been working all day on these elements, but this is the last bit and we are almost at the finish line. To start with, I'm going to crush 2 garlic cloves. I like to use garlic in my bechamel. I think it just adds that lovely garlicky flavor. And again, you know I love my garlic. And then we need 100 grams of butter. So I'm just going to slice that off, because we're going to fry off the garlic in butter and a little bit of olive oil so the butter doesn't burn. And because I love a really cheesy lasagna, I'm going to put a lot of cheese into my bechamel, which isn't the traditional way to do it, but who doesn't love cheese, and who doesn't love cheese in their bechamel? So I've got Parmesan and Gruyere. I think I said that right. I don't know. Don't come at me in the comments, please, if that pronunciation was wrong. I've got 100 grams of butter that I'm going to throw in there. And then just a drizzle of olive oil. I always like to combine olive oil and butter because olive oil actually prevents that butter from burning. Pop in our garlic cloves. Get that butter melting. All right, so we're just going to let that garlic cook away. Once the butter starts sizzling, just leave it in there for about 1 to 2 minutes. We really don't want the garlic to burn. Once the garlic starts to brown, it takes on a nutty flavor and it can be quite overpowering in a dish. So just keep an eye on it to make sure that doesn't happen. All right, 1/2 cup of flour goes in. And an important tool when making bechamel is a whisk, because we don't want any clumps. And you'll see it's already starting to thicken up. Is what we're doing is we're creating a roux. Now, 1 cup at a time, we're going to add in our milk, which is 3 cups in total. But you want to do it in batches so you can slowly whisk that flour through, and it will thicken up as all of that milk is absorbed into the flour. See, look at it go already. And look at how that thickens up so quickly. The best way to tell if your sauce is ready is if it can coat the back of a spoon. Also by feel, this is getting a little thicker. Yeah, look at that. Perfect. So I'm just going to season it now with a bit of salt, some freshly grated nutmeg, and of course, all that cheese that I love to put in my bechamel. That is looking good. I've boiled some water because we're going to parboil those fresh lasagna sheets. You can buy store-bought lasagna sheets that don't need parboiling, or you can buy ones that do. Just make sure you read the back of the packet to tell you whether or not this step is actually needed. But if you're using fresh pasta sheets like I am today, definitely parboil them, and you only need to do it for about 1 to 2 minutes. It's a very, very quick shock to the system, pull them out, because fresh pasta doesn't need a lot of time to cook. And this is just quite the scene, isn't it? We've got the sauce bubbling, the fresh pasta sheets boiling away. I'm going to take that out. That's been about a minute. Oh, you know, I saw that little trick on Pasta Grannies the other night. I was so nervous about showing you guys how I awkwardly pull the pasta sheets out, but look at that, the strainer is the way to go. Now just be careful, because this will be really, really hot. And some people do put their lasagna sheets into an ice bath just to shock it and to stop it from further cooking. I don't really think that's necessary here. All right, we are in the home stretch, the layering of the lasagna. And there is a particular way that you need to do it, and I'm going to show you how. To start with, just a really little thin layer of ragu. You just want to sort of paint the bottom of your lasagna pan with it. And then we're going to start with our lasagna sheet. So I've got a pair of scissors nearby, because we're going to have to cut to length. And it's all right if we overlap a bit, don't worry about that. Now the proper layering begins. Quite a generous amount of the ragu. Although a lot of nonnas will tell you that a traditional lasagna should have 7 layers. So you can go a little lighter to try and get up to that number, that magic number 7, which maybe I'm going to try to do today. I only ever really get up to 5 or 6. I would like to crack the 7. And then a layer of bechamel, just a light little drizzle. You don't want too much in between each layer. And now we go back and do the sheets again. So I think this one was perfect. It is. This is the beauty of making handmade lasagna sheets, is that they're all different shapes and sizes. So it does benefit you when you need a thinner one. Now we just rinse, wash, repeat. So ragu, do that, then a drizzle of the bechamel. And now we do another layer. A little bit thicker, but that's okay. The more rustic, the better. My mum always calls our home cooking rustic, because it calls for imperfections and to see the mark of the cook's hand in the cooking, as she would say. But I think there's something really lovely about that. You can skip the bechamel and put just ricotta cheese or sprinkling of cheese in the middle. I've seen people do that before, but as I said, I am a sucker for bechamel. All right. More layers. I think I'm going to hit that number 7 today. Right. We're going to make this one our final layer. And then what I love so much about using homemade pasta sheets is these edges. You see these little frilly edges coming over? They're going to really crisp up in the oven, and they're going to be like a pasta chip, and they are so delicious. We fight over the corners in this house because honestly, this is the best part, and you cannot get that with store-bought pasta. You have to go homemade to do that. And look, no judgment if you want to go store-bought, but you are missing out on these crispy edges, and they are honestly so good. So then we do the final layer of bechamel. And then, as I said, you will have a little bit of leftover ragu. That will be great with just some pasta tossed through it. You can even just cut this up and toss it through because you've got some leftover lasagna sheets, or keep it in the freezer for when you want to make a bolognese. This is exactly how I make my bolognese as well, and it's so good. So the final step is getting a little bit of mozzarella cheese, pre-grated I know, and just doing a little sprinkle. And I don't cover my lasagna. I just pop it straight in like that. I don't think we need to cover it when it's baking. And there you have it. That is my layered lasagna. It's going to go in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes, or until that cheese is bubbling and golden and those edges are all crispy. So we will see you soon when we're pulling this out of the oven. Yum! Look at those crispy edges. That is what I was talking about. Look, listen. This is so yummy. You've got that bubbly cheese. Oh, So good. So we're gonna let that sit for at least 20 minutes. I know it's so hard not to dig into it right now because it smells so good, but we have to be strong and we have to wait 20 minutes because that's gonna make all those layers just gel together. And when you cut into it, it's not gonna slop and be a bit of a mess. It's gonna hold its form. Now, the moment we have all been waiting for to cut into that lasagna. We very patiently waited those 20 minutes because it is important. And now I'm gonna cut into it. Oh, look at that. That is one perfect piece of lasagna. I cannot wait to dig into that one. You've got those beautiful layers, that ragu that we slow cooked for 2.5 hours, the hand-rolled pasta sheets, and that cheesy bechamel. I couldn't think of a more perfect dish. This is just comfort at its finest. It is a labor of pure love and it is so, so, so good. So please like and subscribe for more if you like this recipe, or if you made it, I would love to hear about it in the comments. That is so good.